The Nerdcast Empire is on the air. We are back with another week of podcasting excellence on the Hard Rock Empire, as we're going to be talking the best rock and metal music from August the 29th, the final release date in the month of August. I am Matt in the studio. Great to have you along with us. We've got some good music this week. Maybe, again, not the depth of it that we have seen over the past few weeks, but at the same time, I think overall it was certainly not a bad week of music, so we're going to get a chance to go through that, and we're also going to talk a little bit about a release in particular that certainly has our attention that we want to spotlight kind of at the top of the show. Joining me, as always, in studio is Mike. Mike, how's it going?
It's going. Yeah, the music wasn't bad this week. There's obviously the one really big release that I've been anticipating for months now. I got my hands on that a couple weeks ago, and it's certainly worth the price of the album. But yeah, there was some other decent music worth talking about, so I'll be excited to get into it.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to start right out. Typically, we start out with news headlines, but we thought, let's just jump right into that release in particular, because it feels like that is something we were going to spend some time talking about, so we're going to go ahead and kind of do it right off the top. It's one we've been talking about for months, to be honest. We've had several news stories that have highlighted the work in progress of this album and everything that goes with it, and it is finally out, or it was out as of August the 29th, new Helloween release, Giants and Monsters. I had the chance to listen to it since I had to spend quite a bit of today in a car. I had a chance to listen to the full album on my drive this afternoon, and I know you'd already given it a full listen, and obviously I'd also heard a couple of the singles that have had videos that have popped up before then, but just a quick thought from me, and then I'll throw it to you, because obviously, this is something you were very excited for. As someone who's still kind of getting through the Helloween catalog. I mean, I know some of it. I don't know it the way you know it, but overall, I really thought this was good. I thought it's amazing to me the way they have worked all the members into this album in a way that doesn't feel like an all-star group. Like, it feels like this is the band. It's not a case where you might see some Frontiers project where they've pulled like 3 or 4 singers and it almost becomes like forced in some way. I didn't get that vibe at all. It just felt very cohesive. Like, this whole group of people have been playing together all these years. And, I think the hits, if you will, the singles are catchy. And I think that, I think they'll appeal to not just Helloween fans, but those who are just fans of power metal, fans of metal in general. Overall, I really enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to kind of giving it some multiple playbacks this week to really kind of dig into some of those other tracks. But again, you certainly have a much more well-rounded perspective, having been a fan of the band for a long time. What are your general thoughts on this release?
Yeah, it's funny. I kind of think back to not Helloween, but Sonata Arctica's most recent album from last year, and how my take on it was kind of like, I feel like they're trying to give everyone a little bit of something regardless of what era of that band you're into. Granted, the lineup's been fairly consistent with that band, but they have had different sounds throughout the years. With Helloween, I feel like they did that, and they did it actually a lot better than what Sonata Arctica did. I think no matter which singer you like and which kind of sound you like, I feel like they delivered across the board. Like, it at times feels like that classic Helloween, the Michael Kiske-led, like, leading into Chameleon version of the band, not too serious. And still very much Andy Darris led as far as vocals go. You hear him a lot on this album, but yeah, I just think between their 2.5 singers, essentially, between Andy Darris and Kiske and Kai Hansen, who every now and then pops in with some vocals and makes you feel like you're listening to old Gamma Ray, but it's a great album and a really easy listen.
Yeah, it was. It was obviously, I've not had a chance to listen to the limited edition bonus tracks. I don't think those were on the file that I pulled up on YouTube Music, but it's a 10 track listing on according to Wikipedia, and then 4 bonus tracks that I think people want to check out as well. And yeah, I think you really kind of hit the nail on the head. I think they found a way to make what they're doing a continuation of what they've done fairly recently, and yet be able to take that throwback to different eras of the band. And again, I'm really impressed. We spend weeks and weeks on this podcast talking about aging musicians who can't get along with their bandmates, who can't get along with each other. And you just sit here and say, oh man, what a shame. Like, this band's never getting back together, or this singer's never getting back with this band. And then you have this situation where it's just like all the quotes you read from this, and obviously what are they going to say? But at the same time, it's so overwhelmingly positive that they all seem to just love this experience to the point, and you feel it when it comes across in the music.
Yeah, that, and when you watch the videos that they've made up to this point for this album, it just looks like they're having a blast. I'm sure in the 80s and early 90s they might have had some ego issues, but it just seems like they've mellowed out to the point where there was just no reason why they couldn't all get together and do music. It's what you kind of wish a band like Van Halen could have done at some point, where give me a true collaborative effort, give me David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar working together. But Helloween's been able to do that, and we're all better off for it.
Yeah, Reigning Phoenix, I want to shout them out. Obviously, they're one of our favorite labels, and they've been really promoting this album for weeks and weeks now. And of course, a lot of promotional materials came out as the album was released, and I think, you're definitely going to want to pick this up. Even if you're maybe, someone like me who knows of Helloween, who knows maybe some of their hits over the years, but maybe not as versed in their deep catalog, I think you're going to enjoy this. If you're a fan, you've probably already bought it. Let's be real. Yeah. Like, it's been a couple of weeks. There's no doubt you have that. This Is Tokyo was the first single off of that. I think you want to check that out because the video of it is very entertaining, very well. I think it really speaks to what you said, that this looks like a band that's just having a blast.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, I think you can tell when a band they're doing it and it's forced in some way, or if they're just having a good time and they want to bring you in. And that's the vibe I got from this. On top of all the other things that people say when they review albums, it's just a good album. The music is great. The singing is great. If it was just some band, any other band that would be on our list, I would recommend this album. The fact that it's Helloween, it's an easy recommendation.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like in ways they've kind of mastered the art of like happy power metal.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel when I listen to it. I mean, tracks like This Is Tokyo, Under the Moonlight's a kind of a sleeper hit to me. Little is Little Too Much. Just so many good tracks and just enjoyable.
Yeah, definitely pick that up if you haven't already. We wanted to spotlight that on the top of the broadcast because we've been talking about it for weeks, and we were hoping it would be as good as we hoped it would be, and indeed it was, if not better. And I think it's going to do really well, and certainly excited to see, do we get a tour out of this, supporting this album, and be able to maybe go see these guys live, because I would definitely love to have the chance to do that.
Well, we know at the very least they will not be the first headlining act named for Sonic Temple. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I feel
like everyone kind of knew that announcement was coming.
Based on, what they've already announced, the genre of music, basically, that this band, MCR, if you've not heard, is going to be one of the headliners. Not surprised. I know somebody who's probably thrilled, and she's probably already bought tickets for Sonic Temple, or would get ready to get tickets whenever those become available. But yeah, I guess I'm not of the right age to really be able to appreciate them as a headlining act. And again, no disrespect to them. They've had a fantastic career, but they got popular kind of after I got out of that type of music. That was beyond, when I was listening to that kind of music. So they don't carry the same, importance to me as they might someone who's maybe 10 years younger than me.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of my issue with them, is that I like their hit songs.
Yeah.
But I feel like the people that are really into them kind of look at the Black Parade like it's something just monumental, life-altering, and I never really saw it that way. I mean, to me, I'm Not Okay was a good song. The song Teenagers is like kind of cringy as all get out, but really awesome at the same time for whatever reason. I've enjoyed some of their stuff, but I guess maybe I just wasn't of the age where it would have impacted me the way it did maybe people 5-10 years younger than me.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to look at it. And again, those are the people that are now in their mid-30s that have the disposable income, presumably, to buy a 4-day VIP pass to Sonic Temple and catch whatever day these guys are going to be on. So, again, we'll continue kind of keeping you updated on some of the announcements for Sonic Temple. They're going to continue to roll out, I'm sure, as we head through the fall. But for those who are fans of My Chemical Romance, I think are probably, and it was, I should note, it was not just Sonic Temple that they were announced for. They were also announced
pretty much all the big Danny Wimmer shows.
Yeah, which it's funny because when that announcement was made that they were going to make an announcement like that, the name that came up was Megadeth, because we know that 2026 was their last year, so, or at least beginning of their last year of touring, however long that lasts. But that was the name I kept seeing coming up, that they thought, oh, well, that's they're going to be a headliner because this is it.
The timing would have made sense.
Would have made sense. And maybe we'll still see it. I don't know. I honestly, I would love that. That would definitely make me a lot more inclined to pick up tickets for next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, of the bands they've listed so far, My Chemical Romance is fine, but I'm more inclined to want to check out Atreyu or Coheed and Cambria. They're kind of more on my wavelength than MCR, but still got a lot of bands to go. I'll be anxious to hear who's next.
And that's the beautiful thing about a music festival is you are more likely to watch a band who's not completely on your wavelength just because you're already there. You've already got the ticket. You're not signing up to go see that band. You can watch the other bands you really want to see, and I'll stick around for these guys as well.
Yeah, and they seem really conscious about the let's try to hit as many subgenres as we can. So with the additional stage, I'm curious kind of how far they run with this. It's one thing to have deathcore, metalcore, and emo. There are still, according to Sam Dunn and the Headbangers Metal Journey documentary, probably like 700 other subgenre that we still have to tackle. So, yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, hoping for a power metal stage, or at least something along those lines.
Give me power metal, give me traditional metal, give me legacy acts, like several days of that. That's what I want.
For sure. So we'll keep an eye on that. One other thing I wanted to just mention as we get kind of the end of what would typically be our news segment, and I had just mentioned it kind of off the air, so we really didn't get anything prepared for this, but I do want to throw it out there. Next Saturday, we're going to be headed up to Cleveland, Ohio. A big concert we've been excited about for weeks. It's going to be Sonata Arctica opening for Symphony X. I've never seen Symphony X. I feel like I've seen every band that Russell Allen has been involved in over the last 15 years come up through my Frontier stuff.
Yeah. He's been busy.
He's been very busy. I've had the chance to listen to some Symphony X over the last couple of weeks in preparation for this. And obviously Sonata Arctica, I think this will be the 4th or 5th time I've seen them live. They're amazing. Definitely looking forward to seeing those guys again. That's two bands that I think if you have the chance, and they're currently on tour, that U.S. tour has already started, and Sonata Arctica is going to have a handful of dates after. In fact, the Cleveland show is the last show that they will be together on, and then Sonata Arctica will be doing 5 or 6 headlining dates after the Cleveland show. So if you get the chance either to see both of them together or Sonata Arctica, I implore you to do it for 2 reasons. Number one, it's going to be a great show. Number two, the only way we're going to get more shows like this is for people to go see these shows.
Absolutely.
So we need people. If you're a fan of this podcast, if you're a fan of this type of music, I'm telling you, won't regret it. It's going to be a great show. I know. I'm sure you're looking forward to it. I know I'm looking forward to it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be interesting because I've seen Symphony X once, but it was a very small set, given it was part of Megadeth's Gigantour, and they were one of the early acts. I haven't seen them headlining, so that'll be really cool. Kind of getting reacquainted with their stuff because I haven't listened to them in a while because they haven't really been all that active lately. But yeah, I mean, I listened to Divine Wings of Tragedy the other day for the first time in a while, and just I've forgotten how great that album is. And as far as Sonata Arctica goes, when you're in a situation where you're clearly not the headliner, I'm not going to go into it thinking, man, I'm going to be disappointed if I don't hear this, because we may only get like 7 or 8 songs. I don't know. So
yeah,
probably 1 or 2 new tracks, a couple of the obvious ones, I'm sure. It'll be a good show regardless.
And I'm sure some of the set lists are already showing up on social media, so we'll be able to have a chance to maybe get a sneak peek as to what these two bands will be playing at that show in Cleveland coming up next Saturday. So next Sunday on the podcast, we'll have a review of that concert in this news segment. So we'll tell you kind of what we thought of the venue, because this is a place neither one of us have ever seen a concert before. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of what we're walking into next Saturday.
So they played on September 18th at the Rickshaw Theater in Vancouver.
Okay.
They played 7 songs. First in Line, I Have a Right, Replica, My Land, Full Moon, Wolf and Raven, Don't Say a Word.
So they played the hits, basically.
Not surprised you're getting Don't Say a Word. Obviously, you got First in Line off the new album. Replica is always probably going to be there. Full Moon's classic, My Land.
Yeah, that's a great set.
You got
7 songs.
Yeah, 3 tracks off of Ecliptica, 1 off the new album, 1 off Reckoning Night, 1 off Silence, 1 off Stones Grow Her Name. So, yeah, I mean, not a bad mix.
Yeah.
Again, 7 songs, so they're not going to play everything you want.
No, for sure. And again, we've seen them headline on a couple different occasions, so that's okay. It's all right to see them as a supporting act. I wish one of the headlining shows was a little closer, but
yeah,
I don't think it is. But definitely looking forward to it. We'll have a full recap on that concert coming up next Sunday. So, and if you're in Ohio and you're thinking about, do you want to see a concert on Saturday? My guess is there's still tickets available for that. So definitely want to check those guys out. It should be a great show. Of course, check out our website as well, nerdcastempire.com. You've got previous episodes of our podcast as well as a store. All kinds of cool stuff there. Good time to remind you, since I have not yet done it, to join our Discord. They'll be pasting the link in both chats as we speak, and that will allow you to find out when we stream, because we will have our stream schedule a little disrupted in the month of October, as I have a couple work trips. One of them will definitely disrupt or delay one of our episodes of the Hard Rock Empire. So you're definitely going to go to our Discord. That's where we post our streaming schedule. That's where you can answer our question of the week in the vault. Or you can just suggest some questions potentially for us. So we would definitely love you to stop by and join our Discord. It is time to get to the new music on this episode of the Hard Rock Empire, which means it is time for me to tell you about how Mike does this every week. Of course, he goes through and he pulls playlists, pulls from playlist, or creates a playlist, if I can ever say it correctly, makes a playlist, basically, of all the new releases for a given date that he can find. The given date this time is August the 29th, and after that, he will go through and he will rate all the songs, and once he's done that, then he will go through and kind of narrow his list down, and then I will go through, and between the two of us, we will go through and each pick 2 new albums to spotlight on the podcast. And again, this week, I thought the stuff that was good. I thought there was kind of a middle ground of stuff that was all right, and then there's the other stuff that doesn't really appeal to us. We do have an idea for a gimmick in the future that once I get that set up every week, that we're thinking about having Chris review 2 of Mike's red choices each week that maybe are things that don't exactly appeal to us, and just give his thoughts, good, bad, or otherwise, on those other bands. It could make for some interesting content going forward.
Yeah, I feel like we've really just seen the tip of the iceberg as far as what we can do with the information we're gathering each week. You'd mentioned before, and I think we've talked about it before, just some of the really outstanding cover arts that we see for these albums. Some of the more ridiculous band or song names. That's always something that's worth revisiting. Toilet Snake with their album this week.
Yeah.
So cool. I mean, the artwork is awesome on it.
Yeah, the album was all right. It wasn't really worthy of our choices, but the album art was definitely top notch. And, I feel like we talked about it before, but it's worth repeating. If you have a small band out there and you're looking to break through, the 2 areas where you can really do a lot of damage as far as getting people's attention is really cool album art and some sort of video of some kind. Doesn't have to be amazing. Sometimes the worse it is, the better it is, depending on how campy you can make it. But just, to me, if you have 2 bands that all merits are fairly even, one has used AI to create some sort of AI slop-looking video, and the other one has shot them and their friends in the middle of a forest behind the dude's house, with like maybe a GoPro or their iPhone or something and edit it together, I'm always going to choose that one over top of the one who threw in a prompt into ChatGPT and spat out a video.
The forest shot metal video is always classic. Bonus points if it's near or in a cemetery as well. That's always a winner. Yeah, there's so much you can do, and with the availability of technology nowadays, it doesn't have to break the bank. You can do it on your phone.
You can, and these new phones in some cases are better than a fancy camera setup. It's all auto. You can a lot of times you can edit it right on your phone. Really, as long as you've got good audio, and if you're just lip syncing, you will have good audio. But yeah, I think that's definitely something to keep in mind if you're a small band looking to just get people's attention. I think those are ways you can do that. But with that said, it is time to get to the music we have chosen this week. And again, really good stuff on the list for this week. And Mike, you're going to kick us off. I guess, what do you have first? But is there any other albums that are worthy of a mention on your list this week that maybe we haven't mentioned, other than the Helloween album?
Obviously. Yeah, I mean, obviously, as far as major releases go, you can't do much better than the new Helloween album, which we have talked about. There was a band that has been a prior pick by us on the show, and that is the band Void, Louisiana-based thrash metal band with their second full-length album that came out on the 29th, Forbidden Morals. That's another band that really cool imagery, has some really cool videos out there on YouTube. They're doing it right, and their music is top quality, so definitely worth checking them out. And then finally, as far as re-releases and collections go, we do have Deep Purple celebrating the 20th anniversary of their album Rapture of the Deep. Deep Purple's always good. Can't argue with that.
Yep.
And yeah, that was about it. Nothing major and collector-worthy beyond that.
Yeah, but good stuff there. And you're looking for something a little different. Those are some options. Where obviously Deep Purple is Deep Purple, so definitely always worth checking out. But having said all that, what do you have for your first pick for August the 29th?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. When I'd settled on my two picks, I didn't really I didn't do a whole lot of research prior to, so I didn't realize I was picking bands that have been around for quite a while. The one I was pretty sure I'd heard of, so I was fairly certain they had been around a while, but the first one I did not know. They are an Italian progressive metal band. They've been around since 1993. This is their fifth full-length studio album. They are Headless, and the album is Transitional Objects.
First off, another album art that definitely gets your attention right out of the gate. It's a little unsettling, to be completely honest with you. But this was one that I think both of your picks were ones that I had marked to potentially go back and check out. And this is really good stuff here.
Yeah, absolutely. This band, like I mentioned, has been around since 1993. They did have quite a hiatus from 2000 to 2011. They currently consist of Enrico Cianciusi on drums, Walter Cianciusi on guitars and bass, Goran Edman on vocals since 2011.
Of course.
Great vocalist. And Martin Hellmantle on drums since 2020. These guys are characterized as a mixture of AOR and progressive, so says Wikipedia. I think that's fair after listening to this album several times. When they reformed in 2011, at that time they actually featured, that was when they brought in Goran Edman on vocals, and also had Scott Rockenfield, former Queensryche drummer, playing drums with them. They've toured with bands such as Fate's Warning, Skid Row, Queensryche, Candlemass, Angra, Bonfire, Tigers of Pantang, so they've definitely gotten out to the people. Another interesting tidbit about these guys is Walter Cianciusi, the guitarist, has also been a part of David Ellefson's touring band for a while. He was, at least from what I could tell, he was definitely on the 2024 tour that he had, which may play a part in the cover song that this album features, which I'll get to as well. Something I like about this album is, despite it having progressive elements, there aren't instances where a song just overstays its welcome. There's not that 16-minute epic where they're proving to you just how great musicians they are, which they are, but to me, I kind of compare it to something like Megadeth's Countdown to Extinction or Euthanasia, where, yeah, it's still metal, but it's definitely more palatable. There's a lower barrier of entry. It could be on the radio. And again, they cover a Megadeth track on this album. The last track on the album is a cover of I Thought I Knew It All, which to me is an underrated track from the also underrated Euthanasia album. But yeah, I think these guys kind of do with progressive metal what mid-90s Megadeth was doing with thrash metal, where it was, okay, we don't need these songs to be oddly structured or insanely long. It's not necessary. So It's prog, but it's prog that's very accessible. Standout tracks on the album include Weightless, Fall to Pieces, No One's Waiting, their cover of I Thought I Knew It All, and the track that I picked to listen to, the song Misery.
Check these guys out. This is Headless with their new release, Transitional Objects. This is the 4th track off of that album, Misery. Let's listen to a little bit of that now. Yeah, this is one of those ones that I had marked immediately when I heard the track on the playlist as one I knew I had to get back to and listen to the whole album, and it's still on my to-do list. But, it is, you do hear the progressive elements, but it definitely doesn't hit you over the head with them.
Yeah.
It's got that AOR type vibe to it, that melodic rock, but a mellower version of it. I think it's kind of where you're in that in-between between AOR and progressive rock. And I think it, like you said, I think the key to it is, and I think this is one of those things when you listen to a lot of this music every week, is it's not boring.
Yeah.
I think there was one release this week, and I won't mention the band's name because it was on a major label. I listened to the album. I really wanted to pick the album, and I was just kind of bored by it. And that, it felt like everything kind of felt the same. There was not that one song that was like, man, this is the hit. This is the cat. It was kind of like song after song after song was just kind of the same thing. These guys, not like that. The stuff is interesting. It is different for sure with that progressive touch in there. But overall, what I've heard of these guys so far, really digging it.
Yeah, and I picked that clip mainly because I just thought the harmony that they have is just outstanding.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's, when it comes to rock and metal, those are things I'm always listening for. They're the bands that are always going to stand out to me, and that's why it totally made sense.
Yeah. There are heavier parts, obviously, and honestly, it's also that harmony that made me think their cover of Megadeth's I Thought I Knew It All was so good, because it's something that Megadeth doesn't employ a whole lot of, so it just felt like an added element to what was otherwise just kind of a straight-up cover.
Yeah, it kind of makes me want to check out that cover, because that would be an interesting...
It's good, and it also reminded me just how good Euthanasia is.
Great
it's just
album.
So many great songs where, yeah, maybe sometimes I'd rather listen to Rust in Peace, but that's just a totally different animal when you compare the two albums. It's just, Euthanasia, they're 4.5-minute songs, but they're just really well written.
Yeah, it's, like you said, it's two different styles, and both are really good. And some days you're in the mood for one, and some days you're in the mood for the other. But really, really looking forward to getting back to this whole album for these guys. Good stuff from Headless. That is Mike's first pick for this week. As always, you have 2 picks each and every week. What do you have for pick number 2?
Yeah, so pick number 2 was the band that I have heard of before, so I knew they had been around quite a while. I guess I didn't realize just how long. So I have some homework to do as far as catching up with their back catalog for sure. So this is, we talk a lot about European power metal acts, so it's kind of cool to run into a really well-tenured American power metal act. And that's what we have here. We have the newest album from the band Vicious Rumors. It is The Devil's Asylum.
This happens every once in a while when we go through this music. Sometimes I hear a song on the playlist and think, I feel pretty confident that Mike's going to choose this one. This was one that was just because of who they were, because of what they played, and because of the sound of the sample track on the playlist. I thought, I'll be shocked if this one doesn't end up on your list. So I was not at all surprised when you added this one.
Yeah, for sure. It was kind of sitting there like, I know I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to check out some other things first and then get back to this. And when I did, it didn't disappoint. This band's been around since 1979. Guitarist and backing vocalist Jeff Thorpe formed the band. He is still in the band, as is Larry Howe, who joined back in 1985 on drums. Band is rounded out by Robin Utbolt on bass since 2020, Denver Cooper on guitar since 2024, and Brian Betterton on vocals since 2024. like I mentioned, we talk about European power metal acts a lot, so it's kind of cool to get to feature one from the Bay Area. These guys came up around the same time you had the big thrash bands like Metallica, Exodus, Death Angel forming, and they kind of all formed in that same part of the world in California. It's kind of cool, like, the differences between when you think of power metal, then you think of European versus American power metal, how it just feels like they have different influences. When you think of European power metal, to me, it's like those bands feel very first Iron Maiden, then Helloween influence. Those are kind of the forefathers of a lot of what I listen to. And with a band like Vicious Rumors, like, it feels very much still like new wave of British heavy metal influence, but not necessarily Iron Maiden as much as some of the other bands. Kind of similar to the bands that I assume were the influences to your thrash metal bands, so that they kind of have that same mentality. You also kind of get some Iced Earth feelings there, which, again, American power metal band, probably influenced by a lot of the same bands as Vicious Rumors. These guys been around a long time, and they've had some pretty big-name musicians in their ranks over the years. Guitarist Vinnie Moore, Steve Smythe, Ira Black. Brad Gillis was in the band for a time from Night Ranger. What can I say besides this is just more metal than power, but still power metal, and I think that's just kind of how we do it over here. Standout tracks on the album include Bloodbath, Crack the Sky in Half, High Hellhammer, Boring Day in Hell, The Devil's Asylum, and the track that I picked, partially just because the title of it is so good, the song Abusement Park.
Like, we couldn't get a cover of See You in Hell on this album. I feel like
they might have one somewhere around here.
They missed the opportunity there. But instead, we'll hear some Vicious Rumors, their new release, The Devil's Asylum. This is track number 6 on this album, Abusement Park. Let's listen to a little bit of that now.
It gets worse just after dark. Slip inside the amusement park. Boys and girls from all walks of life, come inside to their delight. Our things are go, some call it horror, a place of go. No show works harder.
Obviously, the singing is good here, but obviously the guitars stand out.
Yeah.
You heard a little bit of the beginning of that solo that was fading out there, but yeah, it does feel like bands like this and bands like your Bay Area thrash bands are, two limbs of the same tree.
Yeah.
They're clearly related but different at the same time. The influences are clear. You can tell they were influenced by the same bands, but they had a different take on what that next step of progression was going to sound like. And thankfully, both had success. The trees continue to grow in those different directions. It led to different bands off of kind of that tree, but this is definitely not thrash. This is definitely, like you said, it has a feel of that new wave of British heavy metal without really feeling it like it was completely influenced by that type of music, by an Iron Maiden. But you can tell that they probably listen to a lot of Iron Maiden. Like, there's definitely a respect there without being an homage or a direct line down that family tree. But this is really good. If you're a fan of this type of music, it's great these guys have been doing it for a long time and definitely want to keep supporting new releases from these guys. It's awesome to see them still at it.
Yeah, to me, the major difference is kind of the vocal approach.
Yeah.
I think, they don't sing like Slayer or Metallica or Megadeth. Anthrax is always going to be the weird one because Joey Belladonna's just on a different planet compared to what you typically think of a metal vocalist.
Yeah.
Because even he isn't power metal. He's a melodic rock singer.
Yeah.
So that's a different thing. These guys, to me, sing like you'd expect to hear on an Iced Earth album. And to me, that's kind of the essence of what is American power metal.
It feels like a group like Pantera might have been influenced by a group like this. Like, it kind of feels like that's kind of the vocal direction, maybe not the musical direction, but I felt a little bit of like Cemetery Gates kind of feeling to some of the vocals there, where you're like heading in that direction, but maybe not to the same degree that Pantera did, obviously.
Yeah, and that's a weird one too, because you feel like Cowboys from Hell, being the great album that it is, was still kind of a transitional album for Pantera.
Yeah.
Because to me, I don't look at it the same way I look at Reinventing the Steel, or maybe somewhat Vulgar Display of Power, but they just kind of kept going into the more extreme side of things. And obviously nothing like their 80s stuff. But there are commonalities between all of it, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of all related to some degree, but again, really great these guys are still at it and releasing new music and releasing good music in 2025. So awesome to see. Definitely worth picking this up if you can. The new album from Vicious Rumors out on August the 29th. As always, I have 2 picks as well, and we're going to start things off with one that I know if I hadn't picked, Mike was going to pick. This was really one of the outstanding releases of this week. We're going to go to Australia for a heavy metal band from Sydney. This is Darker Half with Book of Fate. Sometimes, when you're going through this stuff, there's just a track off the playlist and just think there's no way this album can be bad. Like the song is so good. And it wasn't. It was great. It's definitely one of the top albums I've listened to this year. I really enjoyed this tremendously from beginning to end. This band's been around since 2003. It was started by vocalist Vo Simpson. This is their 5th full-length album. It was started basically by Vo and his brother Dom Simpson. Vo, of course, on vocals and guitars. Dom on drums. They're joined by Danny Ritz on guitars and Jimmy Winan on bass. This is an interesting themed album. This is that deals with timeless folklore themes, including the Pied Piper and the Wizard of Oz. So, some interesting thoughts there. To me, this is one of 3 Frontiers releases this week. I thought this one was the best melodic sounding one of the 3. Let me run that back. There were 3 other releases from Frontiers. This is not a Frontiers release, but I thought this was more melodic than the 3 Frontiers releases. I didn't write my notes very clearly there. I thought of the, comparing it to what is typically melodic bands, this was way more so. I saw a few reviews comparing them to Queensryche, and I can definitely hear the comparisons there. Vo Simpson's voice definitely has some Jeff Tate characteristics to it from his classic days. Certainly not a bad thing as well. He can really belt it out, and to me, that is what kind of takes this band over the top to that next level is his ability to really carry those powerful vocals through their awesome music. Like I said, these guys have been around for a while. I definitely want to go back and check out their back catalog now that I've heard this album because this was really good. Standout tracks include The Golden Path, From Disaster, Book of Fate, and the song we're going to listen to on the podcast, Another Day, Another Nightmare. So let's check these guys out. This is Darker Half, the Australian heavy metal band, and their new release, Book of Fate. This is the 5th track off of this album, Another Day, Another Nightmare. So let's listen to a little bit of that now. Yeah, overall, this is just a really good album from front to back. I definitely encourage you to check out Darker Half of their new album, Book of Fate. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, I could definitely hear early Queensryche when I listen to these guys. I'm always going to be a fan of that. Yeah, honestly, it's good to see more bands that sound like this showing up on other labels. Like, you don't really want all the bands to be on the same record label, and I think we've seen a branching out where this was Massacre Records, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we've featured them all that often, but yeah, I hope there's a larger market for this kind of music than I think there is, because more people need to listen to this.
Yeah, and like I said, anything that sounds like early Queensryche is going to be good. just really, really enjoyed it. Like I said, some of the themes of this is a little different, but it definitely made for an interesting listen. And like I said, I'm definitely excited to go back and check out their back catalog, but definitely check out Darker Half, my first pick for this week. Now we're going to head to a Frontiers band, but this is a different sound from Frontiers, kind of flipping things on its head. This is a heavy metal band from Grenoble, France. This is Rising Steel with Legion of the Grave. We've talked about, Frontiers, you typically get your melodic rock, and they usually do it very well. This is not really melodic rock. I mean, there are some melodies to it, but we'll get to it. But I really feel like there's a little more new wave of British heavy metal than it is AOR. This band was founded in 2012. This is their fourth full-length album. It is parts just kind of straight ahead heavy metal, and again, parts new wave of British heavy metal. The band's made up of Emmanuelson on vocals, Steel Zard on drums, Tony Steele on guitars, presumably no relation, Steph Ledmaster on lead guitars, and Stone Warrior on bass. Some interesting guys in this band. There are some rough vocals in this album as well, which I thought they really did a good job. I thought I read somewhere that Emmanuelson handled those as well. So always great when you see a vocalist that has the ability to do both clean and harsh vocals. The quote from Frontiers about this from the band, it said, "The album explores darker and more introspective themes with focusing on lost identity, inner struggles, and the strength to rise again. With a mix of raw emotion and powerful imagery, we aim to take the listener on a journey through personal battles that reflect broader human experiences, and it's both a statement of resistance and a search for meaning." There's probably all of that in there, but overall, it's just a really good album. It's, as we've talked about a lot over the weeks we've done this, it's a modern take on a classic sound that doesn't sound dated in any way. Overall, it's just a really good heavy metal album. Standout tracks include Betrayer, Black Martin, Nightmare, and the song we're going to listen to on the podcast, King of the Universe. We're just going to check out Rising Steel with Legion of the Grave. This is the second track off of this album, King of the Universe. Let's listen to a little bit of that now.
The master of the world to rise among us. He will have no mercy for us. For us. No one survived. No more hope. No one survived. You must die. No one survived. No more hope. No one survived. You must die. Where does this conqueror come from? Invaders of the new order.
But yeah, overall, like I said, really enjoyable. Album art is pretty outstanding here, which definitely earns it some bonus points as well. But overall, just a really solid album from Rising Steel. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, it definitely has that traditional metal meets kind of epic metal, and I think the album art lends itself to that as well, with the giant Viking on the front of it. But yeah, again, more of this. I'm all for it. I think we need more bands that are kind of flying that classic metal banner, and I think these guys do it really well.
And more of it from Frontiers, because again, sometimes they get pigeonholed as a label. In addition to, we want more of that type of music from other labels, but also more different types of music from Frontiers. And I thought it was great to find this one in there.
More variety is never a bad thing.
Not at all. But really, good stuff. Definitely worth checking out Rising Steel. Their new release is out on August the 29th. That takes care of the new music for this week. And it's time to get into the vault, where Mike and I will bring you a couple of classic albums you need to check out. Mike is on a whirlwind tour of the world each and every week now. Mike is going through and putting the random country generator to work, where he will allow it to spit out a country somewhere in this world, and then he will go through and pick a metal album or a band and then album to check out. And you didn't exactly have a lot of luck with your draw last week as far as choosing a country that would give you a wealth of options, but what have you come up with?
Yeah, so if we remember last week, I pulled the country for this week, and it happened to be Uganda. Probably not a hotbed of heavy metal, and as it turns out, that is accurate. Yeah, a couple things I didn't realize about the country. First off, it's not very large. Like I don't, on on the old episodes of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, I always hoped they didn't get Africa because I never really learned where the countries were in like the final round of that game show. That was the one I was least knowledgeable about. So yeah, this is educational for me. Also, their official languages are Swahili and English. So English pretty widely spoken there apparently with the Uglish dialect of English. So that's interesting stuff. As far as metal archives go, there were 3 metal artists listed from Uganda, one of which was a band called Threatening, which I didn't realize when I was writing my notes, but I will get back to them later. They're listed as having an unknown status. The 2 active artists, there's a doom metal band called Veil of Ammunition, who have been pretty active, 3 full-length albums, 2 EPs, and a bunch of singles since forming in 2009. Their sound didn't quite resonate with me as much as the third option, but still cool to see there's a band that's been kind of doing it for a while there. The third option is the one I went with. He is a guitarist by the name of Mehul Kanani. He's been active since 2020, has about 7 singles and an EP. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the EP in a collected state on YouTube Music or anywhere, even on his Bandcamp. But the EP does contain 4 tracks, The Ghosts of Khalsan, Firefly, Starfall, and an extended version of The Ghosts of Khalsan. Interestingly enough, based on what it said in his Bandcamp, he is a guitarist whose styles range from Michael Schenker, Richie Blackmore, Michael Wycath, Kai Hansen, and Jonas Hansen. He also lists Siyu and Miki Igarashi from the Japanese bands Galnerius and Shoya, respectively, as influences as well.
Okay.
Which, I'm familiar with Galnerius, big Japanese power metal band, really good. Do an ending theme for Hunter x Hunter, which is great. So his Bandcamp also notes that he's the guitarist in the band Threatening.
Oh, okay.
So kind of similarly to a couple weeks ago, you have 3 metal acts, and one of them actually involves, or 2 of them actually involve the same person. So, but that being said, Metal Archives only lists 2 singles from that band, and they were from about 15 years ago. So, might as well focus on his solo work.
Yeah.
On top of all that, he's also covered the Scorpion song Coast to Coast and the Rainbow song Still I'm Sad. Knowing his influences, you can kind of get an idea of what he might sound like, and he doesn't disappoint. Really cool instrumental guitar rock. You get the feeling, considering he's only been around since 2020, he's a guy that maybe in a few years you're going to see involved in some higher profile projects just because he's really good and just kind of an unknown entity at this point to some degree. But yeah, if you're looking for a quality hard rock guitar, very guitar rock, Schenker, Blackmore oriented, this stuff's definitely worth checking out. Either check out the singles or, the 4 tracks that make up this EP. You can't really go wrong either way. The guy's really good.
Yeah, I was wondering whether I was going to be able to find the album art for the EP. I did, which was great. I was able to put it into our graphic, but it's some of these countries that are so small and maybe not places where metal would typically find their way to. It's interesting that it does. And it's also, maybe as we go through maybe some of these smaller countries, if we won't find that anime or, Japanese pop culture has found its way into these countries, and that's how they get introduced to bands like Galnerius that, probably otherwise you would never know who those guys are if they hadn't done a Hunter x Hunter song.
Yeah, you don't typically think of like the person who's influenced by Richie Blackmore is also influenced by Japanese metal. Like you don't necessarily think there's a huge overlap there unless the person is in Japan. But maybe we'll see more of that as we go.
Yeah, very interesting stuff. Uganda, you can check it off the list. We now have metal music from Uganda. Before we get to my vault pick, I would presume you would like to, alive here on the air, go ahead and find out what awaits you for next week's show.
This doesn't seem like a place. I mean, maybe I'll be surprised here, but next week we are visiting. I love the descriptions here. I feel like they're very AI generated on this website. Like beautiful landscapes, rich history, delicious cuisine, bustling cities, warm-hearted people, and vibrant cultural heritage all can be found in the country of Vietnam.
Vietnam, okay, Vietnamese metal. That'll be.
Yeah.
I bet there's a bigger community there than you think.
Possibly.
I feel like, especially kind of
Western
post.
influences from the war.
Yeah, and obviously, metal in general has kind of spread in Southeast Asia from Japan to Korea to China, probably even as well. So Vietnam on the agenda for next week. So interested to see what Vietnamese metal has in store. But
yeah, could be fun.
Could be fun. It will be one way or another. whether it's easy or not is another matter, but it will be fun one way or the other. So tune in next week to find out what Mike has for you from Vietnam. I'm continuing through the Frontiers bands. We crossed the halfway point last week. There was the randomizer choosing the letter M. We are on to the letter N. Could not pass up the opportunity to talk about Nelson. I think maybe one of the more underrated acts of the hair era, if you will, just era of music that a lot of bands kind of got pigeonholed into, and I think because of that, maybe just never got the respect overall. These guys were great. If you only know them for their hits, or specifically the hit "Can't Live Without Your Love and Affection," you're kind of missing out on what all this band can do. The album we're going to talk about this week is I believe it's their first Frontiers release. This is Lightning Strikes Twice. I believe this was a 2010 release. Of course, I was not smart enough to paste the Wikipedia link in here for Nelson to be able to verify that. But, it was 2010 this came out. They ended up releasing another album a year or two later, but obviously Nelson is made up of twin brothers Matthew and Gunnar Nelson, sons of Ricky Nelson and Kristen Nelson. Just some interesting things about the band real quick. After Ricky Nelson passed away, Lorne Michaels actually invited Nelson, or the sons, to play on Saturday Night Live. They were the first unsigned band to ever play on the show. This was before their hit songs at that time. After their appearance, they broke the band up that they were doing because one of them was behind the drum kit and the other one was basically the lead singer. And they decided kind of in that moment, they had an epiphany. It's like, well, what if we're both the lead singers of this band? What if we're both the front men? And so that's what ended up happening, is they basically turned it around and released After the Rain, and the rest, as they say, was history. Lightning Strikes Twice, Gunnar talks about, basically said it was allowing them to resolve some unfinished business, talking about having a blast writing the album, and it definitely comes through. It was their first release in 11 years, and overall, it sounds like Nelson. It's a lot of fun, just a really catchy album. If you know Nelson from their hits, or maybe you don't really know their deep catalog, I definitely encourage you to check this out. Might be a good entry point into stuff that maybe didn't get the mainstream appeal. But they've got great harmonies. The backing music is great. Again, definitely worth checking out. Standout tracks on this album include Call Me, How Can I Miss You, You're All I Need Tonight, and Take Me There. Nelson still touring, which is great to see. I saw on their Facebook page that they've got some shows coming up in California. So check them out. I mean, I'm sure they're still sounding great all these years later. But that is where we went for the vault this week, was Nelson.
I mean, I'm not surprised this album's good. I mean, After the Rain, it's one of those, like, almost a guilty pleasure album where the metal fan sensibility in you doesn't let you say you like it, but it's very pop conscious rock, but it's really good and their vocals are great. So yeah, I mean, I'm not shocked that they can still do that.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely want to check out more of their stuff. Again, After the Rain is just a lot of fun, and I'm sure the rest of their stuff's been really good as well. So definitely check out Nelson. Vault pick for this week. Next week, the randomizer has given me a band that sounds like a Frontier special, not necessarily a household name. The name of the band is Nordic Union. It is a combination of Ronnie Atkins from Pretty Maids and Eric Martinson from Eclipse/Wet.
Oh.
Haven't heard any of it yet, but I'm guessing it's going to be good.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that coming up next week on The Vault. That wraps up The Vault. It is time to get to the Power Trio, our hard rock hat trick. It is our question of the week. And we're going to shout out Shane, your buddy Shane, giving us the topic for this week. And basically summing up his version of the topic basically says, 3 rock or metal songs that have an emotional impact when you listen to them. I believe he said it hurts so good. It was the exact quote he used.
Which would then make you think that's your favorite John Mellencamp songs. And I just don't know if that necessarily fits into our format. But I think any song, it's an interesting topic because the likelihood of having any duplicate answers is probably fairly low.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of a personal thing, what songs hit you a certain way. Shane and I, in our picks, we did pick a same band, but honestly, that band is the kind of band that probably has about 12 songs that would fit into this category, so I'm not too surprised. But yeah, otherwise, it's going to be difficult for me to even speak on someone else's picks because they don't do anything for me necessarily.
It really becomes more about what you think of the song more than what you think of the emotional side to it. And I went certainly more the rock direction than the metal direction, so I'm pretty sure my picks will be clear of everybody else's as well. But again, that's kind of what we do here on the Hard Rock Empire. But let's get to Shane. He's the one that suggested this topic, so we'll let him lead off and tell me what Shane had to say for his picks.
Yeah, so for his number 1 pick, this is a band that I did not pick, but I could see where some of their songs could do this to you. It's the band In Flames, and it's the song Stay With Me from 2019's I, The Mask. In Flames kind of started as just straight melodic death metal, but over the years, they've really captured this ability to soften it up and give you kind of more emotive type songs. That this song itself is really good. I think there are a couple songs from the Come Clarity album that I would probably think of first, but not a bad pick at all.
Not a cover of the Miki Matsubara classic city pop song from Japan.
No,
Stay With Me.
I wasn't certain of that, but I felt like that was probably the case.
If it is a cover, I want to listen to it.
Yeah.
I want to know. But good pick for sure.
Pick number 2, Breaking Benjamin with their song Failure from their album from 2015, Dark Before Dawn. Again, Breaking Benjamin's a band that I don't dislike them. I've just never really delved into their work.
Yeah.
I kind of know their hits. This is a good song. I don't know them well enough to speak from any kind of position of authority on the song itself necessarily.
I think that's one of those things that I feel like we both have closed our gap on knowledge on some of these bands that we've, over the years, again, it's like, I don't dislike them. I just don't know them. Doing this podcast has definitely increased the number of bands that we know, but there's still so many, that there's just no way to get them all.
And a lot of them are the bands who have been popular in an era where hard rock became less popular.
Yeah, for sure.
I think any band that's been mainstream over here in the past 20 years, it's been a bad time just in general because hard rock has been so de-emphasized over the years.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that.
Number 3 is the band that we both picked the same on, but not the same song. It is the band Sentenced, and this is their song Cross My Heart and Hope to Die from 2002's The Cold White Light.
Is that a cover of was it George Strait that had a song that was called Cross My Heart and Hope to Die or something?
Something like that, yes.
All right, I'll look that up while you tell me about the actual song.
So many Sentence songs could fit into this category. Just kind of going through a couple of their albums and some of their track names. You got Brief as the Light, Never Lasting, The Luxury of a Grave, Despair-Ridden Hearts, Consider Us Dead, End of the Road, Bleed in My Arms, Drown Together, Grave Sweet Grave.
I'm a little worried about those guys.
Well, that was their thing. They were very much a Finnish gothic metal band. They're a band that kind of switched their sound over the years. They started out more death metal, and they switched up their lead vocalist. And that string of albums, 4 or 5 albums they had leading up to their eventual disbandment in 2005, just really good stuff. The lead singer ended up going on to form the band Poison Black, who kind of carried on that sound, a little more modern version of it. But yeah, it's too easy to pick one of their songs to fit this category.
Yeah, it sounds like that was a pretty easy pick. If you're a fan of that band, there's a good chance you have any number of songs from them that you could pick for sure. All good choices, as always, from Shane. And again, kudos to him for the topic. And before I get you to tell me about Chris's choices, again, a reminder to our listeners, join our Discord. You can give us topics for the Power Trio. If there's a question that you want to see us answer, hit us up in the Discord. Let us know what you want to see our takes on, and we'll get your takes as well. We'll share them here on the podcast. But with that said, it's time to get to Chris's picks. What did Chris have for us?
So unsurprisingly, there's some Tool on his list. Big fan of Tool. So number 1 is the song H by Tool. I've never really been that much into Tool to feel like I can speak to that very much.
Yeah.
But, I mean, classic band for sure. Number 2, the song Floods by Pantera, and kind of another situation where I'm more in tune with kind of the heavier stuff from them, like your Primal Concrete Sledge, Becoming, anything off of, there's a couple tracks. Obviously Walk, that's a huge one.
Yeah.
Cowboys from Hell, the title track off that album. But I'm not super familiar with Floods, but again, these are very individual choices.
Very personal category this week.
Number 3, To Live Is to Die by Metallica off of And Justice for All, if I remember correctly. Mostly instrumental. That's a really dark album. Obviously, the album that they wrote following Cliff Burton's passing, a lot of that is just, with the exception of there not being a whole lot of bass guitar on it, it's very dark. But a great album, and that's a great song. Honorable mention, he didn't want to pick another Tool song for his top 3, but Patient he added to his list as an honorable mention.
Yeah, again, all solid picks for sure. And again, like I said, this is a very personal category, so it's hard for us to really state the emotional impact, but we can kind of look at the songs from an objective standpoint. And sometimes you can kind of guess, depending on who the artist is, why that might speak and really touch a nerve with somebody. You have your picks as well. You already mentioned one of the bands you're going to talk about, but what do you have for your 3 picks?
Yeah, so starting out with number 1, we'll go ahead and get it out of the way. The band Sentence. Their song Lower the Flags from 2005's Funeral album. It was kind of known that was going to be their last album. Lower the Flags is basically just a song pertaining to losing someone that you think's a good person. Not a whole lot else to say about that. The band's always been really good at writing catchy songs that are like really somber, but you still enjoy listening to them, even if they kind of, that they're sad. I don't know.
Yeah.
Number 2, Ed Guy, their song Alone in Myself from 2014 Space Police Defenders of the Crown.
That's an underrated, deep cut there.
It is, and kind of uncharacteristic of Ed Guy. And I think that's why, on the album that has songs like Love Tiger, and you end up with this, introspective song, kind of him singing about, the struggle of the world kind of that you see around you isn't what other people see, and you can't explain that to them. It's just so profound to me and at times, and it's just such a great song. Tobias Sammet's vocals on it are outstanding. Definitely one worth checking out and revisiting. Number 3 is a song that's just really sad, and kind of back to the point you made earlier about bands who some of their albums might just kind of get boring because all the songs sound the same. This is, to me, one of the top bands where the diversity of sound on their album is just on another level. And the band Saigon Kick, and the song is When You Were Mine, from 1993's Water. Just such a versatile band and sound on this album in particular. You got something ultra heavy like One Step Closer, then you got a Bowie cover, then the title track, which is really mellow, and then they kind of repeat that where there'll be a heavy song and a mellow song. Then you get to this song. It's the next to last track prior to a reprise of it. And it's just really sad. It's just this ballad about a dude singing about losing his loved one, essentially. And it's just, the music in it is just ultra emotional sounding. It's one of those songs. And if I had an honorable mention, this would kind of be in that same boat where you feel it even if it's not indicative of your life experience. Mm-hmm. You don't have to go through what this guy goes through to kind of have that, oh man, this is harsh. And another song like that for honorable mention purposes it's a song that no matter who does it, I don't like listening to it because it's so sad, but I'm going to go with the cover version. Ugly Kid Joe's cover.
Cats in the Cradle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew exactly what it was going to be when you picked it.
Again, not something I've experienced myself, but it's hard to not, just based on the way the verses are the story they're telling, it's hard to not feel something listening to that song.
Yeah, sometimes it's even hard to listen to just because you do get that emotional attachment to the people in the song, and it is something that's relatable to everybody at some point in their life. Those moments are going to happen, and the transition from being the son to being the dad in the song, and how
everyone can relate to that feeling of lost time, I guess.
Yeah,
like it's a heavy song.
We're going to continue on that theme because I've got my 3 picks, and I did go the more rock route, as you would anticipate. We're going to start, and honestly, this album probably could have had 3 or 4 picks, and I'll mention those as kind of honorable mentions before we move on to the second pick. But the song off of the album that I'm going to pick is Pretty Maids All in a Row by the Eagles from Hotel California. It's another song about, talking about time passing by and, how did they grow up so fast, and it's just as you get older, those type of songs hit a different way when you think of, I've done this for so many years, right? It's been so long since I've been in high school, and those are a little heavier as you continue on. Like I said, there are several songs when you look, everybody thinks of Hotel California as Hotel California because it is, so quintessential, or a song like Life in the Fast Lane.
Yeah.
It's about Glenn Fry talking to his drug dealer as they're speeding down the highway. But then you got New Kid in Town, which is another, here comes this guy into town that's taking somebody's place. You got Wasted Time.
A little more profound than Hotel California and Life in the Fast Lane.
Yeah, Wasted Time, obviously, there's a somberness to that. And The Last Resort, which is the last track, which definitely has a somber feeling to it, but it's just all of those to me are just very, very emotional songs on an album that maybe people don't necessarily equate with being emotional and introspective, especially at this point in their career. Number 2, we're going to go to some Gordon Lightfoot. Carefree Highway, to me, it's one of those songs you hear driving down the road, and I don't know, it's another passage of time song to me, and I think sometimes when you're out on the road a lot, you get that vibe about time passing and how life's kind of getting away from you, and remembering people that you haven't seen in years and things like that. There's definitely an emotional. I mean, Gordon Lightfoot, just the way he sings, his style of music carries an emotion to it, really all on its own, regardless of what he's singing.
He sings like Wayne's World 2 when they bring in Charlton Heston to deliver the line about Gordon Street or whatever it was. That's him singing. That's the acting version of that, where you're just like, oh yeah, there it is.
Just carries so much more weight to it.
Yeah.
And then finally, wanted to get something a little bit more from a rock band. So we're gonna go back to Night Ranger and the song "Goodbye" from Seven Wishes. Classic from Kelly Keagy. We just mentioned him a couple weeks ago, but it's basically their ballad song off of that album, and it's just a very poignant song. Like, whoever wrote that, was really had the formula right. It reached number 17 on the charts, but it's always been one of my favorites, and it's one they've typically put near the end of their set to kind of wrap things up before they come back to encore. But again, just
that's an underrated track, I think.
It is.
I feel like it's not one of the immediate ones you think of, or most people would think of with Night Ranger. But man, that's a great tune.
Yeah, I mean, that album is a really good one. I mean, you start off with Seven Wishes, and you have Faces, then 4 in the Morning, another classic one that's kind of people don't really think about. Sentimental Street. I mean, that's obviously another great track. You have Goodbye that wraps it up. But which is interesting. Additional musicians on that doing backing vocals on Night Machine are Vince Neil, Tommy Lee, Kevin Charles, David Sykes, and Fish Dog. I don't know who Fish Dog is, but I don't think I knew that Vince Neil and Tommy Lee did backing vocals on a Night Ranger track. So,
yeah, I was not aware of that either.
And I could have potentially looked at Night Ranger when I did my Frontier stuff, but I feel like I've talked about them enough, so I would try to go in a different direction. But yeah, a lot of emotional music out there, even in the heavy metal space. I think that's what makes metal so interesting, is that there is this variety of stuff that'll melt your face off and stuff that reaches you on the inside. And to me, when music can do all those sorts of things and give you all those emotions, that's when it's at its best.
Yeah, and I think in large part that was what inspired Shane for this topic, was that we think so much about just how heavy a band is and the guitar work and whatnot. And sometimes, and I think in this modern age, it's even worse where the lyrics can kind of go unnoticed.
Yeah.
Because you're not buying you're less likely to be buying the CD and leafing through the insert, reading the lyrics as you go. So I think you kind of miss some of the meaning sometimes.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. So really interesting stuff. Again, join our Discord. Let us know what your picks are. We'd definitely love to know. And if you have topics for future episodes of the Power Trio, hit us up with those as well. But that is going to bring this week's episode to a close. Big thanks to everyone for joining us once again. Big thanks to all the help getting to the affiliate status. And again, if you have a Prime membership, you're not using it on anybody on Twitch, we would love to have your support. It's free. You can use it every month. You can renew it every month. It doesn't automatically renew. But we would really appreciate that now that we have the opportunity to have subscriptions on our Twitch channel. Again, we'll be back next week, 7 o'clock Eastern time for another episode of the Hard Rock Empire. We're going to move into September next week. We're going to be getting into some September new releases, so make sure you join us next Sunday night at 7 o'clock Eastern time. Big thanks to Chris for joining us in the chat. Big thanks to Mike, as always, for putting this podcast together. Big thanks to Stove Lake Media for their continued support of our podcast, and a big thanks to you whenever and wherever you are listening to us. We'll talk to you again next Sunday night for another episode of the Hard Rock Empire. Until then, don't forget to join the Empire, the Nerdcast Empire.